Hello, welcome back to the channel. This is going to be the sort of part picking list of another build that I've just finished. I was originally going to do the parts list before I started the build, but you know what it's like when you get all the bits together ready to do a new build. They came in and I just found myself building it. I did record the build. I'll be going over that after in the next video. But yeah, for now we're going to be going over the parts list. It's quite well, it's a very high-end PC that I've built. It's using an 8-core PC, 8-core CPU, which we're going over in a second. A lot of high-end parts. It's sort of a rework of a build that I did a little while ago. It was originally going to be my music production and editing PC. After doing a bit of research, I found out it was probably going to be a bit overkill for what I need it for. So I built another one. You've already seen the videos for that. This is the one that I'm using to record this now. That's the one that I'm using day in, day out for my music production. For my other channel and also for my gaming. So yeah, this one is a rework of my first attempt at a machine that I was going to use. I still may have to use this PC solely for the reason that now I've built it. It came out around about £2,500 British pounds, which is expensive, probably too expensive for it to sell on eBay. It's been on for a couple of days. It's not generating much interest. I've literally got it on there just £100 over what it cost me to build it, just so I can get rid of it, get the money back in, so I've got it for some other projects to bring some more builds to you lot and everybody else that wants to see me build some more stuff. I've got a real couple of brilliant ideas that I want to do. I want to do a small form factor rise and build designed for gaming in a new I can't remember the name of the case, but I'll put it in the description when it's done. It's a real sleek sort of looking, it may be a Fantex one, I can't remember. I see somebody do a build of it a little while ago. Anyway, I digressed. I need to sell that machine. It is on eBay. I'll put a link on there. If you're from the UK, you want to spend £2.5 grand on an awesome looking green machine, yeah, buy it. A couple of the parts were decided for me. I'd already bought the processor and I already had the motherboard. I've swapped out the cooler. The power supply remains the same. I changed the RAM to match the build and I bought a better graphics card. So the CPU is an Intel i7-6900K. It's on the LGA 2011-3 socket. This is it. It is an absolute beast. It's 8 cores, 16 threads. It runs at a clock speed of 3.2 gigahertz. You can easily set it to 4 gigahertz in the BIOS, just a one-click tuning if you like. It's very, very stable inside the machine that I've built it in. It sits idle at 39 degrees, I believe. I stress tested it and it didn't go above 65 degrees. So this is an awesome CPU. I did buy this second-hand off eBay from somebody that I've bought processors off before. I'm not going to tell you who it is because when they come up, they're a real good deal. I saved between £150 and £200 in this. I can't remember what. At the time of buying it, it was an £800 CPU. That's British pounds. So the way the pound and the dollar translates into computer parts across to America, this probably was about an $800 CPU when I bought it. It's unable to do anything. This is virtually a do anything sort of computer. It's got the power, the cooling and the memory to do virtually anything, with the capacity to upgrade the RAM at a later date. That was the CPU. I'll talk about the case in a minute. I'll show you the motherboard, which was the other part that I'd already chose for the last build. This is the Asus Strix X99 gaming motherboard. Obviously it is the LGA 2011-3. The main reason I bought this is just for the simple amount of connectivity that it's got on it, and it also comes with built-in Wi-Fi. It looks good as well. It's got the RGB, so you can change the colour to suit your rig. One thing I have done in this, I've turned all the lights on this to green so it matches the theme that I've got going through on this build. It's got everything else you could want out of a motherboard. It's got two M.2 slots. It's got multiple PCI Express lanes. Obviously, if in the future I wanted to expand it and have another card to run in SLI. As I say, the connectivity is brilliant. The audio functionality of this is great. It's a lot better than the Asus Prime, which I built and used in my last build. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's got 8 USB ports plus the new Type C, the 3.1 USB. Originally that's what I was looking for, loads of USB connectivity so I could connect up all my synths and hardware and stuff like that. Still have plenty of available for other stuff should it arrive. So yeah, that was decided for me for this build, because obviously I'd already got it. I wasn't going to spend another £300 on another motherboard, so I used that and the CPU. Everything else I sort of switched around apart from the power supply. The main thing being I switched to a better case, being this Fantex Enthoo Pro M. I managed to get this under £100 British. I'm going to go out there and say this is by far the best case I've ever used for building. Even though it's under £100, it is awesome. I mean, it looks good. The USB connectivity on the side here looks great. As you can see, it's only got two USB 3.0 ports on the front, but it's more than enough. It's got this lovely mesh grille. You can see the fans behind there. I didn't put any coloured fans in there. I may change it up at a later date if I decide to keep it. It's very, very modular in the way you can pull parts out, swap them around. It's very, very easy to work with. It was a dream to work with. I didn't encounter any issues whatsoever. If anything, it enlightened me to what a case should be. Specifically, this drawer that you get on top here, you can see this slidable tray that comes out to help you fix fans, or even if you're going to put a radiator up there. I fitted my radiator on the front here. But yeah, there's two screws on this section, there's three little screws around the back, and then this drawer slides out, so you can fix all the fans to it, slide it back in. It just makes everything so much easier. There's this removable mesh on top. It really is a dream to work with. I may do a review on this on its own, just talking through all the different features it's got, all the different ways that you can gain access to the different parts. As I say, honestly, I could talk about this for an hour. I would recommend this case to anybody. Coming from my last build, which was the NZXT S340 Elite, this absolutely wipes the floor of it. The only thing that this lacks, this is not the one I've got actually. Mine's a windowed version. Mine's got a bigger window than this. It's a full window. It's not tempered glass, but it looks just like tempered glass. It's an acrylic one. It's made to look like tempered glass. It's got the rubber washered screws and stuff. For some reason it's... Let me see if I can quickly find a different one. No, I'll see if I can find another picture. This is the RAM I went with. I might as well talk about this now while I'm on here. I can't show you it because it's in the machine and it came in a very basic packaging. This was a really, really good price. I got 32 gigabytes of RAM from these Team Vulcan people. Vulcan, T-Force. I honestly hadn't heard of them before. I'd done the cheapest price in PC Part Picker and it came up with these. I went for the 2400 version because it was the cheapest. I'm honestly not too bothered about going to 3000. 2400 was good enough for me at the time of picking this. The main reason, because I probably will, if I do keep it, which is looking more likely, I will upgrade it to a 64 gig machine so it can handle a lot more software and stuff if I use it for my music. But yeah, I went for the 2400 clock speed. I got this for just over £200 for 32 gigabytes. That's almost £40 cheaper than the Vengeance LPX that I used in the last build. So yeah, definitely worth the money in my eyes. I'm not too sure how much the price goes up as you go up through the speed of the RAM, but I wouldn't imagine it would change too much. Maybe I'll check that, and again I'll put it in the description later on. So motherboard, processor, cooler. The RAM we've just done. So the cooler, sounds about that. The cooler I went for this time was the H100i2 V2 from Corsair. I've used this before in builds. It is excellent. It's probably the best AIO cooler that I have used in my opinion for how it keeps things cool. It's a lot better than the NZXT, comparing it to... I've done two builds, both with a 7700K, and this one worked a lot better at keeping the processor cool compared to the NZXT. Also, this was the silver elements of this were gonna keep in check with the color scheme of the build, which was silver and black, and then we've got some green RGB elements at the end. So enough said about this. I'm sure you are all aware of this cooler. If you're not, then you should be. It's excellent, does the job brilliantly. It's a 240mm cooler. One thing I did do is I added an extra pair of fans, so I fitted it in push-pull configuration. Fans that I used for that were some Corsair SP120s, static pressure ones. Nothing fancy, no lighting or anything. These were at the front of the radiator, so you couldn't see them anyway. They're buried. They're just doing what they do. I've got them linked up to a fan splitter. I had all 4 fans running off. The good thing about the Strix X99 gaming motherboard is it has a CPU header and a CPU opt or optional CPU header. They both run off. You can set both of the curves for both of those fan headers to run off the thermals for the CPU. So these two went to a splitter to the CPU opt. The 2 that came with a cooler went to the main CPU header on the motherboard. So all 4 fans were running off the same fan curve inside the BIOS, so they sped up, slow down together. Works perfectly, and these Corsair Quiet Edition PWM SP120s are very quiet. Would recommend them to anybody. They come in a twin pack. You get some changeable coloured rings that you can change around. I believe I just left the white ones on. As I say, you can't see them, so it didn't really matter what they look like. That's the cooling done. Then we went for the power supply. Again, this is what I bought for the last build. It's a Corsair RM850X fully modular. It's not the best. They're not the best cables, if I'm honest. They're a little bit stiff. They're quite glossy, especially the 24-pin one for the motherboard. But it's a brilliant. It's brilliant PSU. It's 80 plus certified gold. So what can I say? It gives that 80 plus rating. 850 watts of power is more than enough for what I need. We haven't spoke about SSDs, which I will go over in a sec. So yeah, that's the power supply. Again, that decision was made for me because I already had it. I wasn't going to spend an extra £100 changing the power supply. It's hidden underneath the power supply shroud inside the Fantex Pro M, so you can't see it. Didn't get any cable extensions because the black and grey frame was fine with me. The main boot drive, I went for a SanDisk Ultra 2 solid state drive. This is a 1TB or 960GB version. Probably a bit overkill, if I'm honest. I probably would have just gone for a 500GB one if I was making it again. I did get a good price on this at the time. I can't remember what it was exactly. 200 and something, 250 I think, maybe a little bit more. There is a 1TB Western Digital Blue inside the machine as well, tucked away for some extra storage. The only other thing we haven't talked about is a graphics card. Because the grey and black scheme, I went for a GTX 1080. I've gone for the EVGA GeForce GTX 1080. It's the Founders Edition. Looks awesome in there. Does a brilliant job. I know it's only the Founders Edition. It's what's the word I'm looking for? It's the reference card, but still can be overclocked a little bit and pushed if you want. I generally don't do that much gaming, so 8GB and the speed that generates is more than enough for me. That's the part's done. So nothing to it. It is built. It's sat down there on the floor. In the next video, I'll do a time lapse of the build. Talk about my thoughts afterwards. I've pretty much covered all the ins and outs of my thought process beyond the parts. The main thing was to keep the colour scheme looking good, keep it the grey and the black. Ooh, one other thing that I added just to spice it up a bit was this Thermaltake 14 green static pressure LED fan. The case fan that came with the Pro M were 140mm white. I removed the one off the front, I removed the one off the back, I put them both to the top of the case, and then I put this, you can't see the colour of those white fans anyway, so it doesn't really matter. And I put this Thermaltake on one on the back, so I've got three fans pushing air out, and then I've got the 4 fans on the cooler pulling the air in. I haven't done a pressure test with smoke or anything to try and work out whether I've got positive or negative pressure. All I know is that the temperatures are sitting nice. These Thermaltake fans are excellent. I've used them before. They are really, really quiet. I'm not too sure if they're dynamic bearing ones or not. Yeah, they are hydraulic bearings for silent operation. Guarantees ultra low noise, and they do that. They have a lot better noise-wise, these Thermaltake ones, than the Corsair fans that I put in my last build. Probably will be swapping those Corsair white LED fans out of that. They are very, very loud, even though they are classed as the quiet or silent ones. They do make an awful racket. Yes, that's talking about another build. Anyway, for now, that has been the part list. Stay tuned for part 2, which I will be uploading once I've finished editing it. It will show you a time lapse of the build, and then we'll have some sexy shots of it when it's done. It does look great, and as I said, if you can take one thing from this, it is have a go if you're thinking of doing another build of getting that Fantex Pro M, because it is honestly a brilliant case. Don't hesitate in getting this. They do it in green, or with, it's like a really dark gunmetal-y green. I'm not too sure if they do a white one or not. Let's have a look, see if we can find Pro M acrylic. Yeah, this is the one I've got. So yeah, it's got a full acrylic side window. It's designed to look like tempered glass. They do this one in a grey and also a green also. It's a very dark green. It's got all the same functionality of the last one that I showed you. It's literally just the window that's different. Pull out dust trays, the slidable fan mounts and everything. You'll see how I use those when I'm making the video in the next, when I make the PC in the next video. But yeah, thanks for now. As always, stay tuned. Many more of these to come. Cheers.